Hello, Joel Tadman here from Golf Monthly with a comparison test for you, and it's an exciting one. It's the category of club that a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people are interested in, a lot of manufacturers are bringing out some very impressive performers in. It's that compact distance irons. So a lot of brands are making hollow irons, distance irons, but in a profile that is more of a player's look to it. So nice and compact down behind the ball, but geared towards distance. And the way they're geared towards distance is through the loft of the 7-iron. So I've got 6 models here in the 7-iron that range from 30 to 31 degrees, which is kind of why there's a couple of notable exceptions that we've left out of this video, most notably the Mizuno MP18 MMC, which is at 32 degrees, so a little bit higher for this test, and also the Wilson Staff C300 Forged iron didn't really have the loft that would justify its inclusion at 33 degrees. So hopefully that's given you a good justification as to why we've picked these 6 models. They are 6 of our favourites in this category, and they are the new Cobra King Forged Tec. Now this is in the standard S300 AMT Tour white shaft. But this is at 30 degrees of loft. We have the Srixon Z585 in the Nippon NS Pro Modus 3, and that's 31 degrees. We've got the Ping i500, that's 30.5 degrees in the Dynamic Gold 105 shaft. We have the Titleist 718 AP3 in the AMT S300 black shaft. Then we have the TaylorMade P790 7-iron, which is 30.5 degrees in the Dynamic Gold 105. These are all standard stiff steel shafts, by the way. And then finally with the Callaway Rogue Pro iron, 31 degrees of loft with the True Temper XP 105 shaft. So 6 different irons in this category to test on the range at West Hill Golf Club and at Foresight HQ on the GC Quad launch monitor with premium golf balls to get some dry ball data. So 6 quite different looking irons, I think you'll agree. We're going to take you through various different performance and aesthetic categories, give you our opinions on which one we think is the best to help you make the best buying decision for you. Maybe if you're a single figure, low teen handicap looking for distance without the irons in your bag looking especially chunky, maybe you want them to look like a muscle back when they're actually geared more towards forgiveness and distance. Those are the type of golfers who are going to be choosing irons like this. So without further ado, let's go into the first category, and that is the looks. Now, of course, looks comes mostly down to personal preference. Some people like a very compact iron, some like a little bit more meat behind the ball, some like a matte finish, some like a chrome finish. So there's different things you need to think about. Starting with the Ping i500. Now this has, for me, one of the best looks from the back. It looks completely like a blade from the back. It says forged on it. If you look at it from a distance, you'd think it was a muscle back, but of course we know that it is a hollow iron. And down by the ball, it looks pretty good as well. There's like no offset on that whatsoever. Relatively thin top line, although it is slightly curved, so it looks perhaps smaller than it is, but definitely Ping i500 for me is one of the better looking irons in this test. They all look pretty compact down behind the ball. Obviously the Cobra has a much darker finish on it and a nice white bottom groove there to help alignment. But for me, the best looking iron I can pick out is this Titleist 718 AP3. Apologies, it's a bit muddy. I've been giving it a thorough test recently, but this for me ticks every box you could possibly want from an iron in this category. It looks nice and compact down by the ball without necessarily intimidating you. It's got a touch of offset there, mid to thin top line, and a pretty narrow sole. So if you're looking for a compact look, this iron is definitely going to deliver that, and it looks great from the back as well. And we'll come on to some other reasons why I like it later. But in terms of looks, I think this looks very premium, very classy, and is my favourite in terms of the looks. Now, feel and sound you might think is a bit of a niche category, but there are some noticeable differences across some of these irons that I'm going to talk you through now. Where should we start? I'm going to start with the Cobra King Forged Tec. Now, first thing you notice when you pick this up is how head heavy this club is compared to others. I don't know if it's the shaft or the tungsten weighting inside the head, but it's noticeably head heavy. When you make a few swings, does feel a little bit more cumbersome, a little bit more labour intensive, but it only takes a few swings to get used to it, And once I did get used to it, I did hit some pretty good shots with it. But I think it's just worth noting that that might be something that you notice when you give it a test. Ping i500 again feels very fast, very solid, doesn't feel as soft as some of the other models on test. It still feels quite firm, but like I said, still very fast. But I think if you're looking for a softer feel, you'd probably be wanting to opt for models perhaps like the Srixon Z585. That felt a little bit softer for me while still feeling pretty fast and hot out of the middle. And the Callaway Rogue Pro as well. I like the feel of this club. I like the balance of it. Not too soft, not too hard. Nice kind of stable feel at impact across the face as well. Seems to be pretty forgiving on those off-centre hits as well. But for me, the best feeling iron, and arguably the best sounding iron as well, is the TaylorMade P790. This has a feel and sound all of its own. It feels the hottest, the fastest, the most explosive out of the middle. You really notice how different it feels actually compared to the others. It's a lot more springy, and it just makes you want to pull another ball out of the bucket and hit another shot with it, because you're rewarded when you strike out in the middle with a ball flight and a feel and sound that is unquestionably preferable for me over the others. So if I had to pick an iron based on feel and sound alone, it would be the TaylorMade P790. A forgiving iron could be the difference between finding that greenside bunker or finding the edge of the green. And when I'm talking about forgiveness, I'm talking about ball speed preservation, so not losing as much ball speed on off-centre hits as you might expect. And of course, we're looking at accuracy as well. And looking at the numbers, all 6 of these irons seem to be pretty forgiving. There wasn't a major drop-off in performance on different strikes. You know, looking at the strike locations, it's clear I wasn't peppering the sweet spot every time, but the ball speed seemed to be relatively consistent. I'd say some notable performers in terms of accuracy were the Ping i500, that seemed to be very consistent in terms of accuracy. The grouping of the Callaway Rogue Pro was also very tight, as was the Srixon Z585. All seemed to be very, very accurate when I wasn't striking the centre of the face. When it came down to ball speed consistency, for me there were kind of 2 standout winners really in the Srixon and the TaylorMade P790. Both seemed to be very consistent performers in terms of ball speed, and that was reflected in the carry distances as well. So for forgiveness, it's a difficult one because there are a lot of different things to consider. Accuracy wise, the Ping i500 stood out for me, but in terms of preservation of ball speed consistency, it was the TaylorMade P790 and the Srixon Z585. Right, so I've kept my iPad here to talk about out and out distance, while a lot of golfers perhaps should focus more on consistency of distance. I know a lot of people still want to hit their irons further, and there was a standout winner in terms of out and out distance, and that was the TaylorMade P790. It's lofted at 30.5 degrees, so one of the strongest lofted on test, but it's the same as the Ping i500, but it did give me the longest carries. You notice an average of 177 compared to 174 for the Ping i500, and I got a shot out there at 180 yards, which was the longest I hit on test. It was the only club that hit a shot 180 yards, although it did go 8 yards left, which could be one of the contributing factors to that slight extra distance. What was interesting is that all the irons, apart from the TaylorMade P790, went a very similar distance on average. Ping 174, Titleist AP3 173, Callaway Rogue Pro 173, the Srixon Z585 172, and the Cobra King Forged Tec was actually the strongest iron on test, 30 degrees, that went 173 as well. You'll notice they all hit the ball a very similar height as well, ranging from 38 to 36 yards with the Cobra. Now, what was interesting when testing the clubs on the range in an outdoor environment, I actually noticed that the Titleist 718 AP3 did hit the ball an awful lot higher. I'd say it was 4 to 5 yards higher than the other clubs on test. It was interesting that while that didn't necessarily materialise in the indoor testing, it's something that I noticed on the outdoor testing, which is why I'll always test indoors and outdoors to get a greater overall picture of how a club performs. And this was a typical example of why we do that, because it definitely hit the ball a little bit higher. Maybe that was down to the fact it was spinning a little bit more than most of the other clubs. You'll see average of 5,800 there, which is higher than all the other clubs. So that might be a contributing factor to the ball climbing a little bit through the air, but just thought I'd make that observation for you to let you know that if you're looking for good distance with maybe a little bit more stopping power, the Titleist 718 AP3 is going to deliver that. But if you're looking for out and out distance based on the stock steel shaft, the clear winner for distance is the TaylorMade P790. Right, so I've taken you through my 6 favourite compact distance irons for 2018. Hopefully it's given you a bit of a flavour about what each one is about and maybe steered you towards 2 or 3 models that might be best suited to your game and what you're looking to get out of your iron shots. Taking you through all 6, the Callaway Rogue Pro, I enjoyed hitting it. For me, it felt nice and stable, has a nice look to it. It's a bit shiny for me down behind the ball. That's something that probably the reason why I wouldn't pick it, just because I don't like a polished finish, but you might be different. You might like a shiny looking iron. Looks great from the back. Just a bit nondescript really, didn't really have any standout features, which arguably could be a good thing, but still very impressive nonetheless. Next up is the Cobra King Forged Tec. It's got a unique look to it with this dark AMT shaft and obviously a darker head, and like I mentioned earlier, quite a heavier head feel. When you start swinging it, you'll notice that, I think, but it does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it's definitely felt very stable. You've got that carbon fibre section behind the face, dampening vibration a little bit, and definitely wasn't the hardest feeling iron on test. Didn't quite give me the distance I was expecting, given that it is the strongest lofted iron of the 6. But they do come in 1 length option and with Cobra smart sensors embedded in the grip, so you can track your shots, which is something I've found particularly useful and enjoyable to use. The Srixon Z585 is one of the better feeling irons on test. When in terms of feel, I'm talking about the sound at impact, but also the feel through the turf as well. It's got a very pronounced V shape on the sole compared to the other models on test, and for me that gave me the best turf interaction. Just felt like it was cleaner, quicker through the turf. Maybe when you caught it slightly heavy, didn't have as much of an impact compared to the other models on test, and it was a nice all-round performer. Maybe didn't quite give me the distance I was expecting. It's lofted at 31, which is one of the highest lofted irons on the test, and it is quite shiny and on the heel and toe sections, so very impressive, but one I wouldn't necessarily pick. These 3 are my favourite, no doubt, and it's going to be difficult to separate them in terms of picking my favourite. They are the Titleist 718 AP3, the Ping i500 and the TaylorMade P790, and this is where you really need to think about what your personal preferences are. If you're looking for out and out distance and ball speed, the TaylorMade P790 is the standout performer compared to these 2 and the other 3 on test for me. It just feels the fastest, the hottest, gave me the lowest spin and the longest distance. So for out and out distance, the P790 is the one that I would choose. Next up is the Titleist AP3, and I think this is a little bit of a different offering. Yes, it's compact down behind the ball, and it is quite shiny, which might sound like a double standard compared to what I've discounted some of the other models in this looks category. But for me, what I like about this club is it is more traditional in performance. What I mean by that, it's a little bit higher spinning and a little bit higher launching compared to the others. So maybe you've not got the highest of swing speeds, you need a little bit more help to get the ball up in the air and keep it there. The Titleist 718 AP3 is going to deliver that compared to the other clubs, so certainly worth considering if you fit that target golfer. And finally, we've got the Ping i500. For me, one of the best looking clubs in the bag in terms of the back of it. It's forgiving, it feels fast, it's got a premium look to it, it's relatively firm feeling for me, but feels very fast, very stable, seems to be very forgiving in terms of accuracy and grouping of my shots. While it comes in at a relatively premium price point, I think golfers aren't going to be disappointed if they go down the route of the i500. So there you have it. I hope you found that comparison test useful in terms of picking the best compact distance iron for your game. I'd encourage you to go out, test as many as you can, see which one's going to work best for your game. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know if you do that, which one you got fitted for and which one you chose. Which one would you choose out of the 6 we featured in this video? We'd love to hear from you. But for now, from a sunny Burley Park Golf Club in Stamford, it's goodbye.